there's been another very bizarre development in this whole January 6th saga, as it turns out that the New York Times is running cover for a Trump supporter who sparked the January 6th riots. So this is out of Becker News. So Ray Epps, we've been hearing that name for months, a man who has been captured on video attempting to incite an actual insurrection, only to be called out by the local protesters there, yelling as a Fed chanting. We'll run that video.
Tomorrow, we need to go into the Capitol. Into the Capitol. What? No! Peacefully. Fed.
He got a feature story in Wednesday's New York Times that paints him as a misunderstood man who has been the subject of conspiracy theories. So here's the quote. Up a winding country road in a trailer park a half-mile from a cattle ranch lives a man whose life has been ruined by a January 6th conspiracy theory. So here's the New York Times, the post from Luke Broadwater. Ray Epps, who became the unwitting face of an attempt by pro-Trump forces to promote the baseless idea that the FBI was behind the January 6th attack on the Capitol. Is it baseless? But he broke his silence in the Rocky Mountains interview and saying it's just been hell. Ray Epps' participation in the January 6th riot was sufficiently egregious as to make him one of the early targets of the sedition hunters and earn him as a spot as one of the first 20 of FBI's most wanted. So they put all these pictures. Yeah, we need to find all of these interesting these persons of interest, or however they frame it, and people were quick to point out, yeah, there's something odd about that guy, because he was trying to get everybody all fired up. And there was this bombshell investigative report out of Revolver said, meet Ray Epps, the federal protected provocateur who appears to have led the very first attack on the U.S. Capitol. And after months of research, Revolver's reporting team can now reveal that Ray Epps appears to be among the primary orchestrators of that very first breach of the Capitol's police barricades on January 6th. Epps appears to have led the breach team that committed the first illegal acts on that fateful day. And what's more, Epps and his breach team did all their dirty work within 20 minutes, still remaining in President Trump's National Mall speech, and with the vast majority of Trump supporters still 30 minutes away from the Capitol. And I can say, as I was there, I don't want to say a participant, but I was there recording that as a journalist, and I was at the speech, and I had no idea all of this stuff was happening at the gates. So by the time that we actually got there, so it's like a 30-minute walk to get from one point to the other to actually get to the Capitol, when Trump said, okay, peacefully march onto the Capitol, make your voice heard, or what have you. They edited that out of the committee hearings, that because they want to try to paint him out as the bad guy, like everybody go storm the Capitol. That didn't happen. But meanwhile, there were actually some of these strange agitators, these weird players that were out making things happening unbeknownst to the rest of us, that were at least 30 minutes behind, probably some of them an hour. There were just huge crowds that were marching, and nobody was like, running, yeah, let's go storm it. No, they were just all marching down. We had plenty of time. It was early in the day, but then meanwhile, the Capitol Police were letting people into the building, and we had no idea. I wasn't in the building, thankfully, but a lot of people were, and they weren't, causing any trouble. but they made an example of them, and a lot of them are still in prison being held without charges. The FBI removed Ray Epps from the Capitol Violence Most Wanted list on July 1st because maybe they saw like, oh, that's one of our guys. Yeah, get him out of there. Yeah, he's cool. Don't worry about him. Otherwise, I don't know what else to think about it. They removed him, and then Revolver exposed the inexplicable and puzzlesome FBI protection of known Epps associate and Oath Keepers leader Stuart Rhodes. Now, he is actually serving in jail. He's in Oklahoma right now, even though he wasn't even a participant. He wasn't anywhere near the grounds that day. He was, I believe, up in Montana or Idaho or something, but he is the head of the Oath Keepers, and he was a person of interest, and they wanted to question him. But why is he in jail and not Ray Epps? Ray Epps appears to have worked alongside several individuals, many of them suspiciously unindicted, but not that they weren't actually Oath Keepers, to carry out a breach of the police barricades that included a flood of unsuspecting MAGA protesters to unwittingly trespass on a Capitol of restricted grounds and place them in legal jeopardy. So, and then Stuart Rhodes has said, this is out of the Gateway Pundit, and he's made several of these phone calls from jail, from the Gulag, discussing Ray Epps with this publication, Gateway Pundit, and Jim Hoft. So they've been charged with plotting a seditious conspiracy. Completely ridiculous. The court knows it. The Oath Keepers traveled to D.C. On January 5th and 6th to offer security to conservative speakers and events. A lot of people were suspicious that Antifa was going to make a presence. There was going to be counter-protesters, and that the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers were going to be there to protect just the peaceful protesters of the MAGA crowd. Ray Epps, he was a former Oath Keepers chapter president in Arizona, but this is back in 2011. There you see Ray, and there you see Stuart Rhodes there on the right. And Stuart Rhodes, to comment, to quote, he said he saw the video the night before and afterward. Absolutely, Ray Epps was the chapter president in Arizona, but he left the Oath Keepers back in 2014, and he hasn't been heard from since. So he's been gone. He's been out of there 7 years, and all of a sudden he shows up at the Capitol. And he's encouraging people to go into the Capitol to cause problems, whatever. People were wise to that, called him out as being a potential Fed. Don't listen to that guy. And then he's there moving around the barricades. So he was a troublemaker and provocateur from the very beginning. Asking Stuart Rhodes, what do I think about him? I don't know. I just don't. I don't know if he's just an idiot or someone who was told to go by somebody else. It could be a little bit of both. Could be that he's just easily manipulated and somebody manipulated him. I don't know. It could be an FBI provocateur got in his ear. My memory of him back in the day was that he was well-intending, but not the brightest bulb on the tree. So you wonder if he's been recruited perhaps by the FBI or somebody else in the Justice Department. Who knows? But he is one of the strangest and most obvious front characters of this whole event on January 6th. So they put all these innocent people in a gulag in D.C. where they have no rights at all. They're held, a lot of them without charges, basically being tortured. And but the one guy that's actually the most prominent, that's calling for the actual insurrection and a storming of the Capitol, is all of a sudden he's a victim, and we're supposed to feel sorry for him. I don't get that. Now, I don't want to wish anything bad on Ray Epps. I just want to get to the truth on what happened that day. But it appears that there's provocateurs that were in that crowd. And they've got 14,000 hours of video footage that hasn't been released yet. And you've got, outside of that Revolver article, there's plenty of other weird characters that have never been brought up, while the innocent people are being locked up and they didn't even know what they were doing. They just walked into the Capitol unwittingly. That's the New York Times. Left-wingers and editors working overtime to rehabilitate the image of a man who is deeply implicated at the ground zero of the Jan 6 riots, which have been described by the far left as equivalent to Pearl Harbor and 9/11 rolled into one, or worst thing since the Civil War. Oh my God. So isn't that odd that all of these outlets, all of the people, uproar on Twitter, they want to politically prosecute all of their enemies, throw them all in gulags, except for they'll say they don't know about John Sullivan of Antifa, who was there standing next to Ashley Babbitt, who was actually encouraging her to go in. And then they have Ray Epps encouraging people to go into the Capitol. And those two guys are okay. They're cool. But the innocent people, yeah, let's torture them and destroy their lives. But apparently, according to Adam Kinzinger, so they've interviewed Epps, but it hasn't been publicly shown, so we don't know what was actually said. He could have just said, "Hey, I plead the fifth. I'm actually an informant. I work for the Department of Justice. They recruited me to try to get people to do stupid stuff so they could persecute their enemies." But that didn't happen. We don't know exactly what happened that day. But apparently, since he didn't go into the Capitol, just because he was an agitator and was there affecting the barriers and encouraging people to go break laws.
We are going to the Capitol, where our problems are. It's that direction. Please spread the word.
He was okay because he didn't actually break a law. So I don't know how that works, but something is rotten up there in D.C. We all know that, but it is stranger than fiction. So the claim Epps seemed to have acted on his own is a lie betrayed by the videos themselves, which show him coordinating with others at the Capitol riots, and you will see that in the fantastic investigative report by Revolver, some of the other shady characters. So why are the January 6th committee and its puppets at the New York Times trying so hard to tell readers that there is no there with the mystery man? Well, the committee's show trials intended to cover up the truth, not to reveal it, and the New York Times running cover for a purported Trump supporter at the heart of the Capitol riots belies that the radical left knows that the public is catching on and that something dark and sinister is at the bottom of it. Like they wanted this to actually happen. They didn't want the National Guard out. They seemed like they wanted people to lose their minds, do stuff. If not, they had agitators to get people to get them all riled up, or whether they're firing flashbangs into the crowds.
They've been throwing flashbangs, shooting us with bullets. Look at that shit. Look at this shit. These are fucking American flags. American people standing out here protesting the right way. And we're getting treated like we're not citizens. This is bullshit.
So there's a lot of problems with some of the characters that were up there that day. Ashley Babbitt was a poor victim, kind of provoked to get in there by John Sullivan of Antifa. She was shot by Michael Byrd, who had no business because she wasn't a threat, and there were police standing by. You had the mystery man Ray Epps. You had Michael Stenger, who was Sergeant at Arms, who was up there saying that there were agitators up there at the Hill that day. And of course, he just mysteriously died right in front of 4th of July weekend. And then you've got all the number of officer suicides. Why would that happen unless they were blowing the whistle on something that was going on? Nothing adds up. Clearly the fix was in to get rid of Trump and to demonize his supporters. And when you see the New York Times trying this hard to exonerate a Trump supporter, you know something is really off. Investigation, it's taken a very strange turn, and there's going to be more to unfold as they try to present a very one-sided look at the events, and they cover up for the strange characters that were there. So it's obviously a show trial, and I'm not expecting them to actually be transparent and bring out the truth, but this is what's going on, and now the New York Times is running cover. None of this makes any sense. Well, they gaslight the public so they can sell their narrative of that day. So crazy stuff. We'll see what happens next. Stay tuned for more. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.